Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this regular hearing of the Budget and Finance Committee for Monday, January 13th, 2014. I'm Paul Krikorian, Chair of the Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues Paul Kretz and Bob Blumenfield, and we are ready to begin. Anybody who would like to offer public comment to the committee, either on an agenda item or on a matter generally within the jurisdiction of this committee, please fill out a comment card and bring it forward. Have we received any yet?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll give it a few more minutes on that. Members, what I'd like to do is take well, first of all, I'd like to propose item 4 as a consent item.
Which one is that?
That's yours. Unless there's questions or objections. Did you want to speak to that, Mr. Blumenfield?
Yeah, well, I was kind of curious. I wanted to hear from the departments that are not meeting the objective. You're talking about the IT one.
Yes.
Just to get a sense of what that's going to cost us.
Okay, that's fine. We can hear it. So what I'd propose is that we hear the open session items first, because our closed session is likely to be a lengthy discussion. So why don't we go ahead and just proceed in regular numerical order with the open session items, beginning with item number 3.
Item number 3 is the City Attorney Report and Draft Ordinance relative to amending the Los Angeles Administrative Code to create and provide for the administration of the Council District 5 Avenue of the Stars Community Amenities Trust Fund.
Do we have somebody from the City Attorney's Office to report on this matter? Okay, we'll hold this one on the desk then. And we're joined by Mr. Bonin. Welcome. Let's go next, item number 4.
Item number 4 is a motion, Blumenfield Price, relative to directing the City Administrative Officer and the Chief Legislative Analyst in consultation with the Information Technology Agency, the Economic Workforce Development Department, Los Angeles Fire Department, Department of General Services, and Animal Services Department to identify funding for the upgrade, replacement of desktops in the above-named departments from Windows XP to Windows 7.
All right. And Mr. Blumenfield, I'll give the floor to you on this if you'd like.
Well, the main thing here is we have to upgrade, because if we don't, Windows 7 is not being supported anymore, and then we are potentially subject to all sorts of viruses that could literally close down our system, cost the city a tremendous amount of money. ITA can talk about this if they're here, but they're going to stop supporting and bring offline any agency that hasn't met that upgrade. And so we're particularly concerned to make sure that all the agencies find the money within their budget, or if not, that they let us know now and let us know why, so that we can do something in the budget, because it's just not trying to avoid the inevitable crisis that's going to come when there is an agency that hasn't upgraded, and we either don't take them offline and then we are hit with this massive problem for our computer systems that's going to cost a tremendous amount of money, or we do take them offline and then they can't provide the services that they need to provide, which would be horrible for the city. So this motion has really just been trying an early warning system. We talked about this in my committee, so we don't need to rehash that, but we're a little further forward, and we have a spreadsheet about the agencies that have not met it, and maybe if we could ask them to come up and explain what they want from us to meet that, because I think they if they can't do it themselves, then they need to be coming to us and making their requests of what they need from us. And obviously in the fire department and others, it's understandable. I'm not saying it's not understandable, but I want to make sure that we address this before the inevitable crisis is upon us.
Mm-hmm. So would you like to provide direction as to those departments?
Do we have representatives from the agencies that are saying that they don't, the ones in red on the spreadsheet that are here? If we could have...
You might want to call those out, because I don't have the spreadsheet.
We have Animal Services, Economic Workforce Development, GSD, LAFD, Public Works, Street Services, and the Zoo. And some of them have come before my committee, and we could talk about that. But if part of your solution involves the budget and the budget committee, speak now or forever hold your peace, because we don't want to hear it later on down the road. So if you could introduce yourself, and then we'll go through each one.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. John Chavez, I'm with the Department of Animal Services. Our total issue, the total budget that we needed for computers was $185,000. We did find $80,000 in our budget, so we're down to $75,000. We're projecting possibly a $30,000 this year in savings. We're still short $75,000. It's going to be very tough for us to meet that. Our primary focus, just so you'll know, we're running a little short in our animal medical supplies and our animal food supplies. Those come first. So anything after that would be dedicated to the surplus, the purchase of these additional computers. So for the record, we're $75,000 short. It's not likely that we could find that money in this year's budget.
So you're saying you still need the
75,
funding?
yes.
And obviously, the other piece of this is if we wait for the next budget, it's too late because the April 8th is the deadline of when agencies will be taken offline if you don't have, so what would you do if you don't get, and I'm going to ask this to each of these, if you don't find that extra money, what happens?
Well, we would not be in compliance. We would, first of all, there are some wild cards for us. If we got additional donations in food, we've got donations in medicine, that would certainly alleviate our budget. We would work with ITA on patches, making sure that we have our computers have the latest patches to prevent any problems that way. But we really are, Councilman, we're just short. We just can't find that money. We just have to work with the CAO's office, see if there's any other way to find the shortfall.
And maybe we could, and I don't want to belabor this because I know you wanted to move through it, but we could have ITA come up and tell, because it's my understanding patches won't work, and that if we're relying on that, we're in for trouble. So if I could have ITA
Please
speak to that issue and sort of define the crisis for us in a better.
Good afternoon, council members. Mark Wolf with ITA. Councilman, you're correct. After April 8th, Microsoft will no longer be investing funding in the development of software patches to address any viruses that would be developed post the April 8th date. That means that if we're still running Windows XP on city PCs, that we are vulnerable. And Microsoft has indicated to us in meetings that we've had with them over the last several months that although they certainly have no guarantee, they do expect that there would be a significant amount of activity of developers that are developing viruses following the 8th date because of the fact that this situation is going to exist. So it is definitely a serious situation that the city needs to address, and for computers that are not able to be upgraded by that deadline of April 8th, in order to protect the city's systems and network, we need to have those computers disconnected and running in a standalone manner, and that would prevent any type of virus outbreak, not only on that desktop, but actually propagating to other things on the network.
Right. But if that were to happen, then what happens to the agency? You talked about it. If you have independent computers that are not networked, how does that impact your ability to do your job? And I'm sorry you're the first one. And it's pretty much a generic question for all of them.
Well, yeah, it becomes a safety issue. We have fewer computers that are not, we would not be able to do our jobs, especially out in the field. We'd have to cut out those computers, but it does not help us when it comes to customer service and processing the number of animal transactions that we have on a daily basis. It's just not a practical solution to cut out the number of computers that we need.
Okay. Well, maybe in interest of time we go through the agencies and then hear from the CAO in terms of what they think the solution should be and what actions we need to take as a budget committee besides this particular report, but in terms of the finances, so we can continue to go through. Suits the chair.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Matt Bugay. I'm the Director of Systems for Economic and Workforce Development Department. And I do have good news. We have found the money in our budget to purchase the PCs that need to be replaced. And we plan on doing that well before the April 4th implementation date.
Great. So we'll cross you off the list. And then we have GSD and LAFD.
Director Yee, Department of General Services. We'll be requesting a transfer of funds in the upcoming mid-year for the hardware and software required for the Windows XP upgrade.
Request transfer from?
From various salary and expense funds, accounts.
So cross you off the list. And we have LAFD.
Salvador Martinez from Los Angeles Fire Department. Council members, what we've done since the last meeting is our DOS has been negotiating with Dell, and we have been able to get a lower price on the unit prices. So we pushed that envelope. We have also identified special funds that could mitigate this, but at this point we're at about a $340 total cost for replacement. We think we can cover about half of that, 170 through special funds, through the reduction in the prices and through some general fund allocations we have. We're going to be meeting internally to see what other sources we have, but at this point we'll be dealing with our analysts and be reporting our problem in our mid-year FSR.
Approximately how much do you think?
Approximately 150, sir.
Okay. And just time, we have just three more here. Public Works, Street Services, and the Zoo. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Just real quick, Nazario Salceda, Director of the Bureau of Street Services. We feel very optimistic that we may be able to find the savings within our budget to complete the upgrade, the upgrade of our computers. We're working very diligently with the two vendors that will perform the work. We're trying to get, of course, the best price. In our case, since we have so many, we have numerous satellite offices, the vendors are trying to determine the best way to expedite the work, because once again, we have approximately 40 satellite offices throughout the city, and that to them is a little bit of a challenge because we don't have our computers centralized. So, but once again, we feel very optimistic that we're going to be able to generate, or find the savings from within to pay for the upgrade of our approximately 600 computers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman, if I could add to the general manager's comments. Departments that have a large, so it's two things for departments that could be a resource impact. One, not having the funding to procure the upgrade, the software licenses, or new equipment that's required to run Windows 7. And the second is just not having simply enough staffing resources to deploy the number of devices to change out the computers in time. So there are, as the general manager was mentioning, there are a number of contract resources the city has available that ITA can work with departments on, that they can utilize additional outside resources to help them actually do the implementation. And fire department's a great example because they're so large, and street services is another.
Great. Well, and if I could just jump in on that point for a moment. This is a big undertaking, obviously. It's something that presumably has been known for a while. Microsoft didn't make this announcement 2 months ago. So was a plan in place in the budget to do this transition? I mean, were we anticipating this April deadline coming up and examining department by department what their needs for the changeover would be and figuring that into their budget?
Councilman, to address your question, the answer is no. The announcement came out this last calendar year in approximately the February-March timeframe, and because of that, it was not folded into proposed budget requests from departments.
Okay.
ITA, through our monthly IT managers meeting, did communicate the information to departments and stress the importance of it, and it was probably in the latter part of the summer that we really started working very closely with departments and first working with them to really get a handle on what the inventory was of the number of computers that needed to be changed out. And now we're publishing a monthly report that shows what their progress is and which departments are having issues. And our general manager, Steve Reneker, met with the departments, with the department heads from each department, especially those that were ones that had really large number of devices that had to be changed out, and really communicated the importance of what this is all about.
And I think you anticipated the second part of my question, which is that since we're doing a comprehensive changeover, it's also a perfect time to examine whether we've optimized utilization, whether 478 computers in a particular department is the right number or not, whether that should go up or go down, whether there's other ways to create greater efficiencies in the use of our information technology. So has that been part of this exercise as well?
Although I think it's been on a department-by-department basis where each department IT manager has looked at their department's deployment, and I know that, like, for example, in ITA, just for our own internal devices that we use for our own employees, we've done a similar thing where we've actually evaluated what software was loaded on each of the devices and re-asked the question if there were exceptions to our standard configuration. Was that really necessary? What was the usage like, and so forth? So I think that, yes, it's really, although this has been a painful exercise for the city to meet this new challenge, I think it's a great opportunity in that it's at least bringing city computers throughout the city at a more level playing field in terms of software licensing, versions that are being run, and capacity of the equipment that's being used. Because in the past 3 years during the budget recession, it's been very difficult, and there's been a lot of old equipment used throughout the city.
Right.
All right. So do we have Public Works today? Already got Public Works, and then we have the zoo as well. I thought the zoo last time said they were good to go on it.
Arlene Taylor with the Board of Public Works. Actually, I didn't expect to have to speak on this. I know that we're going to meet the April deadline, and it was based on conversations we had with ITA.
Well, that's great. And that's all. That's really all we need here. So
You're making good progress, Mr. Blumenfield.
And the zoo is the last one on the red list here. If there's a representative from the zoo. If not, or ITA can double check this. I thought at the IT meeting, the zoo said they were going to be there. But I see they're still in red on your spreadsheet. But we can check that out. And then the last thing, and without pushing this item to, is to get the CAO to come forward and see if there's, what steps we need to take, or, part of this is asking for a report on how we're going to bridge that gap. And then we could even hold the item until they report back.
Claudia Aguilar with the CAO's office. We've been working with the departments, looking for extra funds in their departments to match those funds. At this point, there are no plans for us to come back to council to ask for any funds. We're working on our mid-year and addressing the deficit citywide, so this would be another item that we would have to identify funds to complete the transition from the XP to Windows 7.
And I would just add, I would say that the mid-year is probably, if all else fails, that would be probably the last opportunity to do something, make a transfer of funds in order to meet the April deadline of implementation. So I think we continue to work with the departments to identify internal funding within those savings of the department, and as a last resort, maybe provide some transfers from other sources of funds to be identified in the mid-year report.
Great.
Okay. Well, with that, unless there's other questions or concerns, we'll go ahead and advance the recommendation. Approve the item to request the report.
Perfect. Thank you.
And that'll be action of the committee. Yeah. So going back for the moment to item number 3, I'm sorry, I know that the city attorney came down for that, but I think we can go ahead and move that one forward on consent unless members have concerns. Some small questions that we can just work with before council, so it'll be fine unless there's any other questions or concerns. So it'll be the action of the committee to approve the recommendation on item number 3. That brings us now to item number 5.
Item number 5 is motion
Thank you for coming down. Sorry about that.
Buscaino relative to instructing the city administrative officer with assistance of the city clerk to report on actions necessary to authorize a city historian position within the office of the city clerk's records management division.
And let's go ahead and take 5 and 6 together then.
And item number 6 is a budget motion, Labange Buscaino, for fiscal year 2012-13 relative to funding and position authority for an archivist and the office of the city clerk.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Holly Walcott, Interim City Clerk. As part of the current fiscal year budget, 13-14, we do have a resolution authority for an archivist. So this item number 6 can probably be received and filed in as much as we already have the position. We do it as a resolution authority. We do hope to continue it. We do have the position filled. So, but that would be a matter for discussion in the 14-15 fiscal year budget.
Okay.
As far as the historian, this is a new item for us, not anticipated. So we would have to look into it further. The difference between an archivist and a historian is an archivist generally does a lot of the research and ways
I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry. The difference between a historian and an archivist generally does a lot of the methodologies for retrieving and preserving records. A historian more does researches on issues of historical importance to the city. So it wasn't something that we anticipated this motion, so we did not put it in our budget for next fiscal year, but I would assume the motion requests a CAO to report and with the CAO for the city clerk to assist. If approved, we would look further into what would be required, but it's basically, a similar process for any position would be, to get a resolution authority in the next fiscal year's budget, if that's something that the city wanted to consider.
Any questions on these matters, members? My suggestion would be, yes, they are somewhat different positions, but there is a significant degree of potential overlap in those responsibilities and the job skills required and so on. So I'd like to have us advance this forward as a report back on the cost of adding historian responsibilities either to the existing archivist position or as a separate position, and not just the cost of the position itself, but all in. What else will it require in terms of support, in terms of physical space, whatever else you determine to be the cost burden of adding that kind of a position, and then whether or not we can integrate the two into a single position as well.
Sure.
Anything else?
Along those lines, I think what you're saying, but I'm just thinking about is, if there's consolidations that can be done that could create that position, what would those consolidations be?
Well, I think currently what you'd have to understand is we only have 4 full-time people at the Record Center, so there's aren't really any room for consolidation.
Or partnership or any other creative ways to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So without objection, that will be the action of the committee on items 5 and I guess 6. We can go ahead and receive and file then. Great. Thank you very much. That then brings us to item number 7.
Item number 7 is the City Administrative Officer report relative to a comprehensive review of the city's compliance with the California-Iran Contracting Act of 2010.
Good afternoon, council members. Delilah Puche, Office of the CAO.
Dan Kreinbring, Office of the City Attorney.
At the request of the council, the CAO met with city departments and the city attorney relative to compliance with the Iran Contracting Act of 2010. In accordance with the state mandate, the city attorney opined that all city departments will be required to comply with this policy. The city attorney has recommended that the council adopt an amended form which was originated by the state's requirement form and additional language so that city departments can include this in their contracts for future use. In addition to that, the city attorney stated that each bidder must comply. Each bidder's eligibility is based on this form and must comply with all RFP requirements and city's contracting compliance documents. In regard to the impact to the city's retirement system, the city attorney opined that lacers and pensions would be exempt from the state law for any investment activities. However, these departments must comply with AB 1650 for any operational or administrative contracts, such as furniture, supplies, or other personal services. It should be noted that Pensions has adopted a policy for its investment managers to refrain from those companies involved in the Iran energy sector, which is included as an attachment in this report. To the best of our knowledge, the city does not have any current agreements with entities listed on the Department of General Services state's list of prohibited entities, and the city's compliance with AB 1650 will be implemented through this compliance affidavit form. Therefore, the CAO recommends that the council instruct the Bureau of Contract Administration to upload both this certification form as amended by the city attorney entitled Iran Contracting Act of 2010's Compliance Affidavit and the list of the State Department of General Services entities prohibited from contracting with public entities in California on the Bureau's website and the Los Angeles Business Assistance Virtual Network. The CAO also recommends that the council instruct all departments to comply with the Iran Contracting Act of 2010 and require each bidder to complete and submit the compliance affidavit. The council should further instruct all city awarding authorities to implement the language proposed by the city attorney as part of their procurement disclosure provisions, and request that the office of the city attorney include the language as it relates to the mandates in the next amended version of the city's standard provisions for city contracts. There is no fiscal impact to the city's general fund as a result of the adoption of this report. Additionally, staff from the departments listed in the motion and the city attorney are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Kretz? Mr. Blumenfield?
Sure, I'll just, I'm certainly going to push that we adopt this as proposed, and I'm a strong proponent of this. As city attorney and I were the authors of the legislation that required this. We need to do it not only because we're being forced to by the state, but because it is so important. So I appreciate the work that both the CAO and the city attorney have done on this, and it's an important issue. So I just urge us to advance it.
It is indeed, and I think that will be our action. The one question I would have is when we change our procurement policies locally in response to any state requirement or mandate, what is the process of periodically evaluating whether the state continues to have the same requirement or has changed the requirement? We have a lot of sort of standard conditions in our procurement, and many of them are based on state or federal law. How do we keep up to date on that when it changes? Because it changes pretty rapidly, too.
That's a difficult challenge. It does change fairly rapidly. With this one in particular, as Councilmember Blumenfield's well aware, this is tied to federal law, for example. So if, for example, the federal law sunsets or expires, then that could affect state law, which would then affect us immediately. With this procedure, it's on the bid side, so it's on the front end. We put in language specifically in the RFP on the front end. So basically, when we check on the DGS website to see if one of these firms is on it, we would also know that there was a change in the law. So it's a constant process of discovery. It's being on top of it.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
And for this one in particular, the State Department of General Services does change the list every 180 days. So I believe there's supposed to be an update coming this month because we would be approaching that time.
Okay.
But that wouldn't change any of the bid language. That just says check the DSG list, and they update it every 180 days, although it hardly ever changes.
Right. There's an attachment here that has the list of companies. Right now there's 25, so basically we're suggesting that they check this list, which is originated from the state, to see if any new companies have been added or removed from this list.
Okay. Anything further on this, members? Okay. So without objection, it will be the action of the committee to approve the recommendation. Thank you. And does that complete our open session items?
Yes, that leaves 2 closed session items.
All right. So then we will now go to general public comment. And we have no general public comment cards, so general public comment is closed. We'll go now to public comment on items 1 and 2. And there being no cards on either of those items, public comment is closed on those items, and we will now retire to closed session. So if you were, let's go ahead and complete item number 1 first. So if you'll step out for the moment, we'll take item number 1. If you're not here on that matter, please step out.
And just for the record, the committee may recess into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D1, to allow the committee to confer with its legal counsel on the following matters.
The work of the Budget and Finance Committee for this meeting, we are adjourned.